این تو این نرده ببین همین
نمیخوام آقا بریم تو نمیخوام آقا بگیم میرن جلو رد چی باید بگیم
آقا اصلا من رفتم
Iran's had a nuclear program for several decades now, and I think it's important to highlight that the Iranian government has always maintained that this is for peaceful purposes only. Iran has several nuclear power plants, one that is currently operational, and then plans to establish nuclear power at several more sites. And Iran also does other peaceful nuclear research activities related to agriculture, medicine, and so on. We also know that Iran has been enriching uranium to a much higher degree than is necessary for the peaceful purposes that the Iranian government is pursuing. And so for that reason, there has been a long-running concern in the international community that Iran might be pursuing nuclear weapons. So uranium that is used for nuclear weapons tends to be enriched to roughly 90%, and you wouldn't ever go that far, essentially, if you're trying to use it for peaceful uses. And so the stockpile that Iran has that's enriched to 60% could be used for nuclear fuel, but it is also relatively quick to enrich it to the 90% required for nuclear weapons capability.
Always the exchange of delegations and our dialogue, because what they write and what they say, because we all face.
What we know is that prior to Israel's attack, the IAEA had said that Iran had likely enriched enough material for up to 9 nuclear weapons. But what we haven't really got any evidence on is any other activities that would allow Iran to build nuclear warheads. Iran, of course, has a really sophisticated missile industry and has one of the biggest missile stockpiles in the Middle East. But there's more that is required for a nuclear weapons program other than just highly enriched uranium and missiles. And we haven't really got strong evidence that Iran was trying to build a warhead or doing anything else prior to Israel's attack. So Iran has two main enrichment facilities, one at Natanz, one at Fordo. And these are pretty secure facilities with a lot of the actual activity happening underground. And so when Israel attacked on Friday, it immediately targeted the facility at Natanz. And it looks like the strikes did quite a lot of damage above ground. So the above ground facilities are pretty much destroyed, and the electricity supply for the facility is also destroyed. So the IAEA has said that it estimates, on the basis of the damage that has been done, that the centrifuges that you would use for uranium enrichment, which are underground, are likely also damaged and would either need significant repairs or might even be completely destroyed because they are quite fragile technically. And so both the shocks from the explosions as well as the cut of the electricity supply would have probably damaged them quite significantly.
The loss of power to the cascade hole may have damaged the centrifuges located there.
Fordo, we know that Israel has also targeted that facility now, but there's less known about the damages done to the infrastructure there. So it's difficult to assess. But yeah, I think what we know for now is that essentially no radiation has been released at either side, which is really positive. And the damages will undoubtedly set back Iran's nuclear program because Iran would need to either repair or reconstruct the centrifuges that are essential for the enrichment process. I think it will have an immediate effect on Iran's capabilities, just in the sense that those people would have been leaders in Iran's nuclear program, and they are now no longer able to continue that work. But Iran has made such technological breakthroughs, and they likely have the internal infrastructure for training scientists in their own universities and so on, that I'm sure there's going to be a next generation of scientists who are going to be able to pick up that work. How quickly Iran could pursue a nuclear weapon now at this point depends a bit on the damage that's been done and how much of its already highly enriched uranium it could recover. That's really hard to say without knowing more about the extent of the damages. I have seen some experts assess that on the basis of the damage that we know has been done, that the uranium breakout capability would have been set back by several years. So it seems like Israel has managed to do quite a significant amount of damage, but there are essentially some weapons that you could use to strike really hardened, very far underground targets that they would probably have to procure from the US, that can also only be delivered with US planes. So I think one question is to what extent the Trump administration wants to get involved in this. And then, of course, you're also severely increasing, especially at Isfahan, you would be severely increasing the risk of releasing radiological materials into the wider environment, which would be really risky. So, of course, Israel has never admitted to having nuclear weapons themselves, but they are widely assumed to have nuclear weapons. And one of my concerns was that if Israel really wants to see Iran's nuclear weapons program gone and it doesn't get additional support from the US, and it sort of estimates that its own conventional capabilities aren't sufficient for destroying these facilities, whether it would consider using a lower yield nuclear weapon, which would have the explosive capability to reach even very far underground, very hardened targets. That would, of course, be a huge violation of international law and the nuclear taboo, and would be hugely escalatory in this conflict. But depending on how urgent the Israeli government feels, they can only strike now and can only remove the Iranian nuclear program at this point in time. That is a risk that is unfortunately on the table.